This is the VS4-10 Fordyce, and this has immediately become my favorite VS4-10 of all time. The vintage style pickup body on top is named after one of the most famous trails here in Northern California. And underneath of this body, it shares a lot of pedigree with my previous favorite VS4-10, the VS4-10 Pro. The Fordyce shares the use of the standard VFD transmission and is paired with straight axles underneath. This uses the molded F10 straight axles. These are now held in place with 4mm upper links and steering links. They still use the larger diameter stainless steel links down low. The front tie rod is now straight and uses bent rod ends, giving you a little bit of extra clearance as well. These F10s will give you 49 degrees of steering, and these are now using a sintered one-piece ring gear and spool and a machined pinion. Mounted on the F10s, you'll now find these new KMC Riot bead locks. These are an all-new plastic beadlock wheel. They use 8 M3 screws with a coarse thread in the backside to get everything mounted all at once. So there's no more separate rings front and rear. But with that new design, it also shares the inner clamping ring that the standard Vanquish wheels use. So if you decided that you wanted to add some weight to the front end, you could use the 0.8-inch wide brass rings and add them right into these wheels. Mounted onto the Riots are the red compound 465 Falcon Wild Peaks. The Fordyce has a molded front grille with front light buckets, and it shares the VRD1 cage, the bed sides, bumpers, and sliders with the Phoenix. The Fordyce comes in gray and blue, and it comes RTR. So it shares the same electronics package that was previously seen in the Phoenix RTR, including the 4-channel radio. I did one modification to my radio, and I 3D printed my own custom steering wheel that made it a little bit easier to drive one-handed. If you'd like that, I'll link it below where you can download it for free. And if you hang around to the end, there's something special that I made up that you can have as well. Since the Fordyce was named after a famous and difficult trail, I decided that I wanted to challenge myself to do one of my favorite trails, the Catfish Trail, here near Donner Summit in California, but in a new way. I wanted to do a bottom to top run of this Catfish Trail without touching the truck. Let's crawl. The F10 axles have the ability to offer you 49 degrees of steering, but out of the box, you will want to increase the endpoints on the radios. They're set more conservative than the axle is actually capable of. So increase those and you'll increase your performance quite a noticeable amount. The combination of the VFD transmission and the straight axles really just gives this truck a super planted feel. The motor's down nice and low. The transmission has less going on inside than the VFD twin, but is absolutely bulletproof. The gears inside offer a 6.5% overdrive, which is a reasonable amount to aid in turning and climbing, but not tax the stock RTR electronics. Now, as I mentioned, I plan to do this run without touching the truck, but it didn't mean that I didn't expect the truck to roll over at all. Tumbles and rollovers were going to happen, but I needed to right the truck on its own without having to touch it. And this body actually does a pretty good job at not ending up on its lid and turtling. You can rewrite this truck pretty easily. And with that low center of gravity, it wants to find its way back to its wheels anyway. Getting to some places on the trail did offer multiple paths that could be taken. And that was the tricky part of this whole task, is some areas maybe looked like the way to go, but they ended up either having real tricky spots early that maybe would cause me to have to grab and reposition the truck by hand. So I had to find another way around that looked like it was going to be a little bit more doable without that. Sometimes that meant taking an approach at one rock before having to back out and find an alternate path. 465 Falcon Wild Peak tires in the red compound that come on this truck are some of the best RTR tires you can get. They are super sticky and super grippy. Now, they do have a tendency to give you that wrinkled sidewall look as they're grabbing traction. That's just a side effect of the amount of traction that they're getting. It's not that that's a problem, but you have to recognize that they are just that soft and sticky, and they are going to have that look. I didn't have any issues with the beads coming out of the new Riot beadlock wheels or anything along those lines. It was just a lot of traction to be had, and they kept the truck moving forward. There was a couple places along this trail that were exceptionally difficult and took attempt after attempt to try and climb, and that meant big tumbles at times, but try and try again, and the truck was able to right itself every time without having to use any assistance from me. Sometimes these were just the bottlenecks that we came to in this trail, and we had to find a way through it. Right out of the box, this truck is impressive with its stability and its climbing ability, something that I think shows pretty well in video.
On the left.
The narrow bumper on the Fordyce is the same bumper that comes on the VS4-10 Phoenix. It's nice and narrow, gives you maximum approach angle to the tires. Now, the bumper position out of the box is one notch forward, and that's to allow the Fordyce body to hinge forward still, just like the Phoenix did. But if you'd like to improve your performance just a little bit, you can remove the set screws from the bottom and slide it back one more bumper hole and give yourself even more front approach. Easy mod to do, and it still allows the body to hinge up, just not as far. One of the most treacherous sections of this trail is this split here. Two possible lines look like they're doable, but in reality, this wildly off-camber slab is the area that is the most reasonable to try. Now, just the off-camber nature of the slab itself may not be the most treacherous part of it, but if anything is to go wrong along this trek, just to the downhill side of the truck here is a cliff that is 50 plus feet to the bottom, and there's not exactly a way for me to stop it from happening with driving with one hand and filming with the other. So I had to just pick careful lines, try and keep the truck in a planted orientation, and keep making progress. Can't say enough how planted this truck feels with the VFD and the F10 straight axles. It's what has made it feel so much like my previous favorite, the VS4-10 Pro. Combined with the vintage style truck body on top, it's why it's become my favorite instantly. And I'm really looking forward to diving in and doing some custom projects with this platform here soon. The standard VFD transmission is using a slipper lockout, and it's got the 6.5% overdrive built into the transfer case. If you want more overdrive, you can get the 21% overdrive kit for that transfer case. Aids in climbing and turning quite a bit.
Up through. Get up. Oh, look at this. I found a 3D printed GoPro.
Video. Yeah. The checkpoint I stop at every time on this trek is at the power poles. You get an awesome vista here of Donner Lake down below, previously known as Truckee Lake, at the far side of which is the location of the infamous Donner Reed party. Catfish Trail is in the vicinity of the Pacific Crest Trail, which you are not allowed to drive RCs on. So if you're ever up in the area, make sure you stay off of that path specifically. But there's plenty of beautiful terrain up here, even while avoiding that path. While driving one-handed, I'm filming most of this with my DJI RS3 Mini gimbal and Canon M50. Along the trail, I didn't always take the most direct route. I was enjoying driving this truck so much, I would oftentimes put this through more difficult and more interesting obstacles along the way. But along the way, I got into this sticky situation where I beached both the front and rear axle on rocks and in some loose terrain. I ended up having to use all of the power and a lot of steering input to try and free myself from this situation, and eventually it came free. The steering servo on the Fordyce is about 200 ounce inches. It's enough to get the job done, but it's not going to be all that impressive. But for an RTR, it's pretty much status quo. Catfish Trail ends at what we call Catfish Lake, or Catfish Pond. Probably seems a little bit more appropriate, but just this natural catch basin up here on the hill. And to be able to do this trail with an RTR truck, especially while driving one-handed and filming at the same time, feels like something that I would consider an accomplishment again, especially for an RTR truck. This truck definitely shows the signs of running this trail, especially in this way, with the big tumbles and everything it took. I feel like this truck accomplished a lot in tackling this trail. As something to remember the trip, the release of the new vehicle, and the challenge that I put upon myself, I made up these laser-etched Catfish trail cards with my logo and the VS4-10 Fordyce across the bottom. Something I thought would be fun to offer to you guys if you picked up your own VS4-10 Fordyce. If you'd like one of these cards, when you're picking up your Fordyce, you can just punch in this little code and it'll just signify to throw one in your order. It doesn't cost anything, it's just something I threw together. If you'd like one, enjoy. This really has become my favorite VS4-10 of all time, and something that I'm looking forward to showing you more and more of here in the future. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already, hit the notification bell so you see the videos as soon as they get uploaded. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.